Their hands are bound behind their backs, weapons and ammunition strewn among them. Libyan authorities say these men tried to overthrow the Gaddafi government. Some of the men are moving. The pictures aired on Libyan state TV. In another clip, a man describes what he says are weapons seized from an Algerian national who entered the country with the aim of assassinating officials. The authorities say these are Egyptian passports, seized along with mobile phones and CDs. A man describes information which he says was found on the CDs, detailing instructions about sabotage. Minutes later, more men appear on camera in what seems to be heavily edited segments of taped confessions. This man says he broke into an army base and stole Kalashnikovs. An official from the Popular Committees for General Security says all weapons stolen must be returned.
We are calling on anyone who took weapons must return them to the popular social committees in their areas. No legal action will be taken against those who return the weapons and regret taking them.
Pictures like this serve to demonstrate the standoff that's now holding in Libya. The people of the uprising say victory will be theirs. This is the town of Misrata in western Libya, which has reportedly fallen to the opposition. If these pictures are accurate, then they would seem to bear that out. The international media is now beginning to find its way into Libya. These pictures show pro-democracy supporters celebrating their control of the city of Benghazi, but interpreting the direction events are heading in remains as difficult for people in the country as it does for the outside world. This video purports to show the aftermath of fighting on the streets of Tripoli between pro and anti-Gaddafi forces. It's been widely reported from the capital in Benghazi that gangs of yellow-hatted militia have been given free rein to move house to house in the hunt for the opposition. Gaddafi's tactics have enraged even those who know him well.
He's using mercenaries, not because he wants to use them, because he cannot use the army. He cannot use the armed forces of Libya because they are Libyans and they are faithful and honest people. They will not kill themselves, because killing their cousins and uncles and friends, it means that they are killing themselves. So he doesn't trust them. He doesn't trust even his own guard.
Video emerges all the time showing chaos and the danger which protesters often run headlong into. Here, for instance, there seem to be snipers on the roof of a building opposite. A small crack is heard and a man goes down, shot in the groin. Another rumour, again unverifiable unless it happens, is that Gaddafi has threatened to blow up his oil pipelines, which would bring havoc to the country, already beset by poverty, and would have ramifications on oil prices across the world.
There are desperate scene, a scene of panic there at Tripoli airport. The flight I've just come back to the UK on was an evacuation flight arranged by the UK Foreign Office, but the flight was only half full. Let me explain to you why. The airport is become a logjam. There are people inside the airport, some of them have been there for 3 days in pretty bad conditions, but there are many more who are outside the airport. It's taking them a long time to get the paper, the bureaucracy, the exit stamps to get a ticket. Then to try and buy a ticket, it's almost impossible to buy a ticket. And then the real difficulty, getting into the airport. There are so many people crowded around the airport, big crowds trying to get through the door, and they're being held back by police who say there's no more room in the airport. Those police are even beating people with clubs, stopping them getting inside the airport. Really desperate scenes, and nearly everyone I spoke to, and I tried to speak to as many people on the ground in Tripoli in the short time we were there, said please tell people about the appalling state of things here at the moment in the airport.
And James, where were they trying to get to? Was it a medley of places?
A medley of places. Many of the people are North African, trying to get to other North African countries, Egypt and Tunisia, for example, putting on as many flights as they can to get people out. But there is this problem that flights are leaving and they're not full because so many people are actually not in the airport and can't get inside the airport. They're telling really desperate stories, Imran, of what it's been like the last few days inside Tripoli. One woman telling me how she witnessed soldiers opening fire on protesters. She said, I saw Gaddafi killing his own people. She was on a rooftop watching that with some other foreigners, and then the soldiers started firing at them, and they didn't want any witnesses to what they had done. They fired at them, they had to duck down, and then smoke grenades were thrown at the rooftop where this group of Britons were watching what was going on.
During those 17 hours, were you able to categorically ascertain who was in charge at the airport? You mentioned police. What sort of police were they?
Yeah, there were all sorts of people around. It was very difficult for us to film. We didn't get a camera out once. We're going to show you the pictures in the coming hours. Most of them were filmed on a high-quality mobile phone, because if we'd got a camera out, we would have been arrested. They don't like international media, and they certainly don't like Al Jazeera there. But in answer to your question, it's pretty clear the airport is still very firmly under the control of Gaddafi's people. All of the normal people you'd expect at an airport, immigration, customs, police, but also secret police patrolling the area on very high alert there at the airport. I'm told by people who made the journey to the airport there are checkpoints all along that road checking people as they come towards the airport. Many people telling me that around Tripoli they believe in the last few hours Gaddafi had been losing control and maybe now, though, is slightly consolidating his position.
The images of violence in Libya have appalled Africans across the continent, as they have the whole world, especially because the man at the center of the crisis, Muammar Gaddafi, has positioned himself as a champion of the continent, vigorously promoting the Pan-Africanist idea of a United States of Africa, one in which he would be president. A continent with one army, one passport, one currency, called the Afro. So what will become of Colonel Gaddafi's vision if he's toppled from power in Libya?
The exit of Muammar Gaddafi in Libya will have some tremendous consequences on the capacity, especially in terms of the tremendous energy and resources that he has dedicated towards ensuring that African unity, or what he calls an African continental government, comes into force.
The African Union, which was to be Gaddafi's vehicle for the idea, ignored him when he was its chairman last year. Despite that, the Libyan leader used his country's vast oil wealth to influence some in the organization, spending billions of dollars on everything from aid, the military, humanitarian and infrastructure projects, to buying expensive gifts and building monuments dedicated to African leaders. Focusing on getting the poorest and most fragile states like Chad, Central African Republic and Niger to buy into his ideas and broaden his popularity. If he goes, the African Union will be seriously out of pocket. The organization released this statement on the crisis.
The AU condemns the disproportionate use of force against civilians and deeply deplores the many human lives lost so far.
If Gaddafi does go, will he be missed? Unlikely here in Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation, where the Libyan leader recently called for the country to be broken up in order to quell religious violence, leading many Nigerians to dismiss him as mad.
There have been many inconsistencies in how Colonel Gaddafi has positioned the identity of Libya, either whether it's an Arab Islamic country or whether it's a black African country. And I think what he's tended to do is to play the game of a political chameleon, taking on a different shade depending on what is actually supportive of his own objectives, not necessarily in support of Africa or the Arab states.
While he may not be missed, Colonel Gaddafi is one of the last African leaders to remember a continent largely ruled by Europeans. The famous winds of change brought that chapter to a close. And whatever the outcome of this crisis, Gaddafi's time as an influential figure in Africa has almost certainly closed as well.
They just keep coming. Ras Jadir, the closest route out for those leaving western Libya. Many of them are Tunisians, some from Tripoli. They describe an escalation of violence in the last 24 hours. Each person says they're lucky to be alive.
They caught us and they told the pro-Gaddafi people, these are the dogs, we caught them. They handcuffed us and put our faces to the ground.
Tension on this border is growing. There is a discreet army presence, but the Tunisians are very aware of Libya's military might just a few hundred meters away. A man who says he's a Libyan opposition leader is told to bring his flag down. Omar Mamdi left Libya on Sunday. He says the situation there is desperate.
The Libyan people are burning. Kids, elderly men are dying by the hundreds every minute. We ask for help from all the free nations. They really believe in freedom and democracy.
For Libyans, Egyptians and many other nationalities, this North African country, once ruled by its own dictator, has become a safe haven. Tunisians are watching what is happening just across this border with a sense of apprehension and foreboding. It was an uprising here that inspired Egyptians and now the Libyans. There is fear about what the coming hours and days may hold.